Awesome. And if you guys have any questions too, as we're going through this, you are welcome to like pop it into the chat. Eddie and Christopher are going to be monitoring that while I'm speaking, so they can handle that. But I'm just going to do a quick intro. So this is our second cohort of the Category Design Academy. It's going to kick off November 4th. Applications are due by September 30th. And we are super excited because we learned a ton in this first cohort, and we're very excited to launch the second one. So just a quick overview of what we're going to cover. We'll share a little bit about us if you don't know who we are. We're going to show you what the Academy looks like and talk a little bit about the training. Then we're going to have Pablo and Danny in, and they're going to talk a little bit about just how to make the most of the Academy. And then if you all have any questions, we're going to answer those towards the end if they need a little bit more in-depth explanation, and we'll be answering questions that are in the chat that we can't answer in a short written version as we go. Okay, so let me just give you a quick overview. We created the Category Design Academy as part of Category Pirates because we had the newsletter and we realized writing the mini books, it was amazing, and we had a ton of people following them and loving them and subscribing, but we needed a more hands-on approach to actually go and do category design in the real world. Some people learn great and they could do it just by reading the mini books, and others really wanted that hands-on learning experience to be able to meet with us a couple times a month, ask us direct questions, go through a more structured training program, and just have a community of people to be able to ask questions to and lean on for support and all of that. So that was why we launched the Academy. It's hosted on Mighty Networks. And our whole mission of both the Category Pirates and the Academy is to be able to equip and unleash 100,000 category designers. So we're pushing towards that mission. We have about 31,000 on the Substack. We had a couple dozen in the Academy for our first cohort, which we kept pretty small, just to be able to make sure the program was working, make sure the training was working, and give everybody attention. So Eddie, Christopher, is there anything that you want to say about this one? Since I joined the ship after you started it.
This was perhaps the most fun I had all of last year. So
yeah, the Academy, it was fun. Okay, awesome. So just a quick, so you know if this is right for you or not. Obviously, most of you here, I would assume, have some idea of whether or not this might be for you. You're asking questions of, do I invest the money in this? For those of you who may or may not know, the program is $12,000. It's a 9-month program. So we want to make that very clear up front what it is, and we'll talk a little bit about the investment of that down the line. But just very quickly, it's for you. It's really for anyone who wants to be a category designer, consultant, creator, entrepreneur, and they want to apply category design skills to their company, to themselves, and both to the clients that they serve. So we had so many different types of people in our last cohort. We had a co-founder of a marketing agency that was in the life sciences category. We had Adam, who created his own category of developer-facing startups, and he was an advisor to new startup founders who were in that category. We had Danny, who was working in education. We had Pablo, who was working in B2B events. We had a whole host of people. We had Mr. B, who was a rapper / creator / musician, and that was a ton of fun to have him in there. He launched his first children's book while he was in the Academy. So just a whole host of people, but basically everybody who wanted to really develop the category design lens. They really wanted to understand pricing and making sure that they were pricing their services correctly. And then as a result of those prices and having this lens and choosing the right clients, really being able to drive outcomes both for themselves and for their clients. So I'll let Eddie and Christopher, you guys can talk about this a little bit more if you want to, since you have the consulting advising experience. But I think what we realized after the first cohort was it's not just for consultants, even though it does have a consultant's lens. So Eddie, maybe you can speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, no, I as somebody who has been a career consultant, it was my first job out of college. I still do it today. And, I've never really had a real job until, entrepreneurially started Category Pirates with Christopher, and then some other things recently. But I've come to see.
I knew you were a natural born entrepreneur, Eddie.
I did a bunch in my late 40s, so I'm hitting my.
Hey, you're way entrepreneurial now.
Yeah. But what was kind of fascinating to me as somebody who's been a consultant for a long, long time, someone who, a budding entrepreneur, and I guess a creator since I started writing in 2009 or so, that the skill sets that I think, Christopher, you and I are probably at this point unconsciously competent about are really valuable. And I've had so many clients over the years, whether between jobs or think about, I'm no longer a CEO. What should I do? Should I do this consulting thing? And I started to realize that there were many things that I had picked up along the way that I wasn't fully conscious of, that if we could write them down, that would be extremely important and valuable to folks who, whether it's a side hustle or your main gig, what we fully believe is that kind of your name LLC is something everybody should have because it'll make you a better executive, it'll make you a better entrepreneur, but it'll make you a better creator or advisor, consultant if you want. And that's the stuff that, as far as I can tell, has not been written in any book, because these are things that are kind of in the apprenticeship model, which is what the consulting craft is very famous for. And so that's partly what I felt very passionate about, was there are very important skills that, A, are not written down so much, and B, even if they were written down, you kind of need to, as Christopher says, get on the floor and roll around in the jujitsu mats, right? You got to test them out and see how they go. So that's kind of my, consulting as a skill set has been a great superpower for me. I've come to believe that everybody should have this toolkit, in their bag, and we're super excited about teaching it to people, as many as we can.
There's also something interesting. So I'm in no way what anybody would call a consultant. But I am an advisor, and I do serve some legendary CEOs and executive teams and founder teams. And there's an interesting thing about being in the advisor, consultant, board member type role. Well, less board member, take that out. Consultant advisor type role, which is, I've been in situations in my career where I had lots of positional power. When you're a C-level executive, there's all sorts of quote unquote power that comes with it, hire and fire people, and, spend money and move budget around and all these sorts of things, right? And so you have what's called positional power. The interesting thing about being an advisor is you have zero positional power. And so the only power you have is the power, or your power, to interact with people, and in the case of category design, to help them create a radically different future. And being a Sherpa on that climb up the mountain is, I know there's lots of great things you can do in your career. I don't think there's anything more great than that. There are things that are equally great, but if you're somebody who dedicates your career or a big part of your professional work to helping others category design a radically different future such that we move the world from an old place to a new and different place, that's a fucking extraordinary thing to do for a living. In addition, what I'd say is, no surprise, this program is not for most people. Right. And so this program is for people who are very serious about category design. This is a no joke program. This is a get in the dojo, get on the mat, and punch your teammate in the face kind of a program. Well, most importantly, though, if you think about most education, most business training, most online courses, most books, most podcasts, most business education of any kind is fundamentally about a few key themes. One is incrementally better. So you hear the word better show up all the time. Can we build a better mousetrap? Right? One of the things we teach category designers, listen to the words, build a better mousetrap. Okay, well, better is in reference to something called the past or the status quo. A different future is in reference to itself. And so my point is this: most business content and education is about incremental improvement, competing to win in existing markets with innovative products and services and brands. That's not this. This is for people who are not interested in competing in any traditional sense of the word. These are for people who are not finding their place in the world, but they're making their place in the world, radically different futures. And those are the people who move the world from an old place to a new place. And in business, those are the people who make 76% of the economics.
I'll jump in real quick. From Stefan asked the question of what aspects of the course are the lead to the biggest paradigm shift afterwards. I think we love all the months that we have created, but the first three probably hit hardest. And I don't want to jump the gun on the presentation tab, but like basically,
Go ahead,
number
Eddie.
one
You can do it.
okay. Wait. Uncover your superpower. So Stefan, like this has been the most interesting thing. Like I'd say some portion of the first cohort had a good feel for what their superpowers were, and just need a little bit of refinement. Others thought it was A and turned out to be something completely different, and that shift was really, really important. And then probably another tranche where like I have no idea. And keep in mind, these are people who have been very successful in their careers, building, at companies and entrepreneurial ventures or as advisors. And I don't think I fully appreciated like how much of a given, how not to take it for granted. Do you know your superpowers? And I think at some level, Kat, Christopher, and I have been different enough that we've been forced to be very clear about what this is. And so that's kind of the first one. The second one, and by the way, it's not anything related to your title or your degrees or your pedigrees. It's going to be very, very specific in a way that you may not know. The second month that
Eddie, sorry to underscore this though. We had people in this latest, the first cohort here that we're just completing, who are PhDs, who are multi-time successful entrepreneurs, who had extraordinary officer careers in the military and are now entrepreneurs, and on and on and on and on. And so lots of extraordinarily accomplished people in many different domains: music, business, the military, the environment, et cetera, lots of different places. And for each of them, they sort of all reported that getting in touch with, even though after all that training and all that experience and all that accomplishment, many of them, to Eddie's point, never really sat down and said, what's my superpower in terms of what are the problems I love to help people solve? What legendary outcomes do I deliver? What patterns are there in those things over time? And understanding the true value of those things over time, both economically and what makes your heart sing. And so my point is, even some of the most some of the most accomplished people you could possibly imagine were not clear about their category superpower. Yeah. And in getting clear, that was the beginning of the breakthrough.
Right. Well, and it's kind of fascinating. And at some level, we're sharing what I know Christopher and Kat have helped me personally, but like becoming self-aware, very self-aware of what your superpower is and being, having the tires kicked on that is one thing. It's another thing to price that superpower appropriately in the market. And that even some of the folks that people in the cohorts have a wide range of swagger. Some people have a lot of swagger, some people have less or whatever, but almost always there was significant room for clarity and upside in changing either the amount that you charge or the way that you charge. And that part of the reason why we are very comfortable asking for 12 grand for this is that one simple move on changing your pricing and you'll recruit multiple times what that amount is now and going forward. And that, at some level, we're kind of taking our own medicine, is that we're trying to make sure that people who jump on the second cohort are serious about facing what their superpowers are and then charging appropriately and valuing their value clearly and accurately and in a confident way that allows you to materialize that. So like that probably is a level up in terms of intensity and difficulty, but the payback is even that much greater on that front.
And I mean, we had people in the academy who, in their first 6 months or before, increased their prices by 50%, in some cases doubled their prices, and had an increase in business like they couldn't have imagined. And so when you understand what your different is and the value of that different and to whom it makes a difference, and you're super crisp about the way you frame, name, and claim the problem, and you do that in a unique and different way that kind of opens people up to thinking about something, a problem or an opportunity in a new and different way, when you become that person, all of a sudden the landscape of opportunity for you changes in a pretty material way, because category design is the greatest underground superpower in business, because everybody knows you can design a product. Everybody knows you can design a business. But most people assume the market is the way that it is, like the weather is the way that it is. And the most legendary creators and entrepreneurs and social change agents and artists of all time have been ones who rejected the status quo. There's a concept in category design called reject the premise. We can't think about creating a radically different future unless we start by completely rejecting the status quo. Now, we may come back and accept parts of it as we go forward. However, to free our minds to think about a radically different future for us in our careers, for our businesses, for our families, for our communities, and maybe even for our world, we have to be willing to reject the way that it is in order to imagine the art of the possible. And then once we do that, we can start to category design the markets of the future.
I'll add the third month that we're going to hit you with. So ironically, after we help you clarify what your superpower is, and then further on top of that, charge what you're truly worth. Of course, the logical thing is we're going to tell you how to say no to people who want to buy your stuff, which is mastering the no sell sell. Probably the hardest thing that, you'll have to master in this whole experience. And in part, I think there was a question in the chat by Jess about case studies and examples. That we have. I'll steal Christopher's phrase. Long story longer is a way of life in the academy. So you'll have no shortage of story time and war stories with that. I would say
Some of
that
us have never been celebrated for our brevity.
Some of the most powerful case studies, I will say, are the ones that we're creating together. And so, like, what I don't think I fully appreciated the first time out was, I think we're very proud of what we've written and the videos that we recorded and worksheets and all that kind of good stuff. But it was really, folks like Danny and Pablo, having the courage to hear the feedback, take a leap of faith, increase their pricing, double down on their superpower, reject. Like we had, I remember Danny, I don't know if you want to share that later on, but we had some real hard conversations about, like, I have a proposal here and I don't know. And us saying maybe you ought to close the door on them, do the no sell sell. And the no sell sell, it's something that it's a great example of, it's one thing to read it, it's another thing to be told it, and it's entirely different to have a whole host of people cheering you on, having empathy for, we know how hard this is, and then having your back. Like, that's that part of the academy we couldn't do ourselves. That's the magic, and that's why we're fairly careful about trying to curate who's going to be in it, because that part, I think, serendipity and blessing, everybody pulled for each other. And that's the part when you do these things, hey man, that's not your superpower, but this one is. I'm glad you raised your pricing. Can you push it a little further? Because it's worth a whole lot more than that. And that client wants you to discount. They are not worth your time. Hold the line and move on and trust us. They'll come back, or this and that. Like, that kind of stuff needs to be done in community. And I think I much better appreciate that now than I did before.
It's one thing to talk about motor car racing. It's another thing to go see one live. And it's a whole other thing to sit behind the wheel of a very fast vehicle and hit that throttle.
Let's pull Pablo in. I know he's here. Pablo, if you want to pop in and just share. So I just want to give everybody a context here. I chose strategically. Pablo was the first person to sign up for the first cohort of the Category Design Academy. I think like the 20 minutes after we launched it, he was in our inbox and had bought it. So Pablo, I know it was quite the experience for you. I want anybody to be able to ask questions that they have from you, just like what it's like to go through it. But why don't you share a little bit about this like combination of superpower pricing, no sell sell, and what that was like for you?
Yeah, cool. I was literally sitting here being like, as Eddie was talking, I was like, yeah, yeah, just nodding my head about all this stuff. Yeah, like you said, I was the first person to sign up because I get the sense that there's like a balance of people that are like, oh, I just read Category Pirates and it's brilliant, so I'm like interested in this. And then I assume that there's some people like me that read Play Bigger 5 years ago, have been obsessed with it, and I've been trying to figure out how to like add this to their life. And that was me, right? So I've just kind of like had tried everything. And I had spent a lot of time trying to figure out what my category was, started my own community around it, looked for mentorship elsewhere. And like nothing worked like this, right? I think what Chris and Eddie were both saying, this idea of getting in the seat of the car and taking it 135 miles an hour, right? Like the swagger that gets injected into what you do by being around this group is almost inevitable. And for me, what that looked like was going from being someone that, man, I'm so like missionary focused and I'm so into what I do and I'm so believing that it can help people that I would just kind of like bend every way possible in order to land something and make it work for them, to no sell, right? Like to being on the phone and just being like, listen, pal, there's nobody else in the world that can do this for you. So I don't know what you want to do here. Like you're totally right, and this is your problem. And if you want it solved, you can invest 70 grand in a junior marketer that'll get you there like a third of the way there in a year, or give me 25 grand right now, and in a month you're going to be way ahead of the game. And before that, I was charging like 5 to 10 grand. On top of that, also asking for equity in deals has become very, very real to me. That was something that I had kind of tinkered with. I never knew how to push forward with. And that's become very real, and that's working out. And I kind of see that as, like when you're building out this like consulting practice, it almost feels like a cash flow business. But if you can also have bets in different assets that can work out for you and build a little portfolio of bets around that, I think that's a nice upside play. And beyond that, I was kind of in like the smaller, medium-sized business world, knowing that I wanted to be closer to the venture-backed game of like people really going for it. And I'm 100% in right now. So I don't know. Is that what you're asking for? That's kind of it. Like the underrated part of this for me was the not just the expertise, like I had a lot of reps trying to category design myself and category design other people. So that took very quickly for me because of the exposure. But the behind the scenes of how you actually grow an advisory sort of business, that for me almost felt like it's this like very nebulous space that not many people talk about that, and having a way to sell it, having a way to think about how you would bring on a partner and like what kind of pipeline you have to have in place in order to grow that thing. That was incredibly valuable for me. So I just kind of said a lot of things there, but
One thing I'll chip in here is Pablo was such a great, you were such a great participant to have. And one of the things that I remember this, I forget when it was this year, but you're always such a great community member, cheering on others, encouraging them. And then there was a time where we asked you to get on the hot seat and share. And I think it was like, I don't know if you remember this, like a couple minutes in, you're like, okay, great. Anyone else want to go? Like, no, stay there, because we got to push beyond some of it. And I think I saw in the chat, Deborah was asking about, here's my background. Is this the right kind of you know type of person that we want? What we want are people who are obviously excited about their businesses, want to learn kind of the craft of category design and being an advisor, but in particular, being unafraid to get on the hot seat, to be asked different questions and kind of be on, like we have some people who have lurked in the background and they're not always upfront. That's fine, to each their own, but like That's my sense, Pablo, is that your courage and your
You can
willingness to
be an
kind of be
introvert in the
vulnerable.
program.
Yeah.
It's okay.
But what was part of what I think you made such a massive difference for others and each of us, but also for yourself. But that was what I have that fond memory in my mind of that uncomfortable live session for you.
Thanks, man. Listen, I also have to give the three of you credit, right? I'm a person that's been obsessed with how you add value through community for the better part of 10 years. And it's very clear to me that for everybody sells, oh, I'm going to teach you this thing, but there's also a community and that's a value, but that only really works if the people leading the community themselves are, exaggeratedly generous with their time, their availability, their kind of like knowledge. And I think that what the three of you very deliberately did there was obvious to me of a very consciously over delivering, and a 1 hour call could easily turn into a 3 hour call because everybody was jamming and everybody was getting value. The random like late night jam sessions of just like hop on and let's talk about whatever. And anytime you put anything into that Mighty Networks thing, one of y'all or all three of y'all would actually give like, hey, this is pretty good, but do this, blah 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 blah. And like I've just never seen anybody truly scale the way that they can give advice to people and dedicate themselves that much, like that, which I think was a big part of it too, which led to others wanting to partake and wanting to be more generous, right? So you lead with example in it, which I think is crucial.
Thank you, Pablo. It's probably very clear. If it isn't, let's make it clear. This is not some online scam, bullshit, hustle porn, blah, blah, blah. But wait, there's more, any of that crap, right? The three of us got together to do this to make a difference. Period. Category design's the greatest underground skill in business. People asked us to do this for many years, and we avoided it. We didn't think we wanted to. Turns out we love it because hanging out with Pablo and everybody else in the academy, Eddie said it right off the top. It's one of the greatest things we've ever done. And so we're in this program to make a difference. And Katrina, Eddie, and I are involved. It's not just our AI avatar. And to Pablo's point, we do 2 hour marathon, ask me anything questions, and we get into do workshops, and Kat leads us through the program, and we all do our homework, and we evaluate each other's homework, and et cetera, et cetera. And so we are actively engaged because we actively give a shit.
Awesome. All right, we're getting some questions. So one question from Deborah, I just wanted to clarify. I think she was saying, Eddie, you kind of answered it, but I think she had a typo. She was saying she's not an entrepreneur or a C-suite executive, but she's looking to pivot her career and be her own boss.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to talk a little bit about the consulting experience and then also what we've seen from people who are in that position.
Right. So to Deborah, your question of like being your own boss has been so Christopher helped me pull the escape cord I don't know, 7-8 years ago when I left my old firm. And like I had the head knowledge that I think this will work out fine, but back then he did for me what we are trying to do for you all, and really gave me the swagger injection to feel confident to do it. And what I have to say, your aspiration, Deborah, is spot on. Like I have loved being my own boss. I don't think I could ever go back to working for anybody again. The like, and that it's been when Christopher and Kat know this is like, just kind of that part of my career has so allowed me to not just be who I am as professionally, but I've just kind of leaned into my own introvertedness, as Christopher said, is a great thing for introverts too. Is like, Kat and Christopher know at around this time of day, I run out of words and I stop talking to people. And everyone that I work with knows that, and they all joke and laugh about it.
When we do our legendary offsites, the three of us, and we've been jamming all day and having great ideas and doing all this stuff like a band in a studio, very much so. And then we go out to dinner afterwards, And the minute we sit down at dinner, it's about 6:45. Eddie has about enough to order the food and maybe say one or two things. And then Katrina and I are alone together at dinner with Eddie sitting there.
So I've been able to embrace that, but long-winded way of explaining, Deborah, like your aspiration is exactly the right thing, and we will help you get there. Part of the reason why we have emphasized consulting as much is not a hard requirement, but it is the quickest way to get a payback on the course. And so just keep that in mind. But so your aspiration is exactly right. You don't have to be an entrepreneur or a C-suite executive, but as long as you are willing to embrace the journey and the apprenticeship part and be part of the community, I think you'll do fine on that front.
Awesome. There's also a question from David about, it's along this line, so I want to cover it now before we hop to Danny. Hey, Danny. Is just, he asked if we could speak to the mix of people who've entered to kind of grow their advisory services versus get clarity on their category vision that needs to be fleshed out. So if you guys want to talk to that and kind of how we've seen them combine and unite, and kind of the whole, what we had set out at the beginning of, this isn't for us to do category design for you, but it is an important part of the training.
Well, I'll speak to this at some level of, we, in the first cohort, we tried very hard to take our own advice and niche down, which was that intersection of category design and advisory consulting. And then what we found was that, I mean, Kat, we were talking about this, like, when I looked at last year's applicants and I, did some, weird category science data, and then I was like, I revisited it, and Danny and Pablo, you'll laugh at this. Like, we had great participants from all different types of cohorts and this and that. So I think I've had to be a little more flexible and not being as rigid about like, hey, if you're not a consultant advisor in category design, not a good thing for you. I think, David, we've expanded it some to include creators, startups, and entrepreneurs, just so that you have that opportunity there. If you are working for a larger enterprise and like that, that's the one that we're probably going to draw a line on, of like, hey, that's stuff that there's kind of a B2B side that we each do individually on our own or together at some point. That's not really meant for the academy. If it's kind of more that lowercase B2B entrepreneurs, creators, startups, or advisors, that's probably a good fit. So I don't know how to answer your question without probably getting to the more specifics of it. But like, if you have something that, I think as long as you're kind of going with the flow and you have questions around gaining clarity around a category vision that you are working on as an entrepreneur executive, that's probably okay. But just know that, we have to be respectful.
It should be for your career, not your
career.
Company.
Yes, that's a better way of saying it.
Right. So that's the way we sort of try to think about it. If you're here, if you're a small entrepreneur, we're certainly willing to talk to you about it. But if you're here from a venture-backed company, a major corporation, et cetera, to do category design for your firm, you're in the wrong place. If you're here as somebody who wants to do category design for a living, or wants to incorporate category design as part of your Wonder Woman or Batman utility belt, by all means. Strategy consultants, advisors. One of our awesome legendary guys, this guy named Adam in the program, is an advisor to startups. And so he incorporates category design now more in how he advises. And he did category design for himself in the program, and he's had breakthroughs kind of on both dimensions, if you will. So all that's cool. So if you're somebody who wants to do category design as all of and or part of your career and what you do for others, you're in the right spot.
Awesome. Glad I answered your question. Okay.
Hi,
So
Scooby-Doo Schimberg. I didn't know you were here.
That's who you just answered the question for.
Oh, well, there you go. You're in the right place. David, you're always in the right place, especially if I get to be around you.
Awesome. Okay. It looks like everybody wants to go inside the academy, but before we do that, Danny, do you want to talk a little bit? I'm going to get it all set up and ready to go. Do you want to talk a little bit about your experience in the academy, what it's been like, kind of if you had any advice for people who are thinking about going into it, or like how you would even make the most of it if you're already planning to go into it, that would be awesome. And just you can talk about your category too, because ruckus makers are amazing.
Yeah, big fan of ruckus makers. Ruckus makers, pirates, rebels, they're all kind of the same. Advice would be do it, right? If you're here on the call and it seems to be aligned with where you're going, this is hands down the best investment you can make in yourself and your business. I think I know I'm a super consumer, using Eddie's words, of different types of courses. I just love to learn and get better. And I've done a lot of stuff. This is the best community I've been a part of, right? So you make great friends, which is pretty cool, and you get incredible lessons, right, that you're going to apply to your business and to your life. I've had breakthroughs such as thinking I did one thing for 8 years and then realizing, oh, that's not why people hire me. How about that? So that's changed how
What
I
was
show
that
up.
like, Danny? I mean, I remember when you had it, but tell everybody.
I changed my diaper, and put my eyeballs back in the sockets and brain back in the cranium. Once that mess was cleaned up, which was a beautiful thing, it gave me such clarity and confidence. This pirate crew, talks a lot about your swagger, category design swagger, and I certainly benefited from that. And I didn't lack confidence coming into the program, so it's been supercharged. But the sense that you think you know what you're doing, and you want the message to resonate and all of that, and you're hitting your head, against the wall, and through the academy. I can't spill the beans, so to speak, but I figured it out, and it's resonating like crazy, with my audience. So that was a huge win. And second win, sorry to be a little bit late to the panel, but Katrina knows, I had actually an advising call before this, right? Whoa, look at that. And somebody who's willing to part with some equity to get some category design assistance. So that is super exciting. And that was a big reason.
So let me understand this, Daniel. There's a person
we're
on
getting
planet.
serious. It's Daniel now. Okay.
I'm just being silly to be silly. There's a person on planet Earth who is willing to give you ownership in their company so that you will talk to them. Is that what you just said?
Yeah, that's
Okay,
exactly
good.
what I just said.
Please continue.
And the thing that they've created is absolutely a game-changing technology. And essentially the way they've been describing it is like old technology 2.0. And I'm like, don't do that. Don't do that, right? Like, we can create a category, and you give the examples and that kind of thing. And he's all in, he's ready to go. So super excited to start that work. I think I've bought you enough time, Katrina, but if you want me to talk, I mean, I do keynotes.
Oh, I've been ready the whole time. I just wanted to
Okay.
hear you talk.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. I'm going to give everybody a quick little tour, and then we can keep jamming. So can everybody see this inside? Yes. Okay, cool. So this is what it looks like on the inside of the Category Design Academy. This is going to be a little bit behind the scenes, so get ready. So once you get in, it's very clear what you need to do. There's welcome checklists. There's a place to go and meet everybody. We're going to have we're letting everybody a week before the training actually starts. So we're going to have a lot of prompts and just like get to know each other and learn how the academy works, but before the training officially starts. So you're going to get to know all about us. You're going to download our app, which actually, super interestingly, most people use the academy through their app, and we have our own app, and it's custom. The Mighty Network folks helped us create it, and
It's gorgeous.
It's pretty beautiful,
shocking.
and I love it. Yeah, it's amazing.
Well, and Katrina, like, if people didn't know it was Mighty Networks, you would think we invested $5 million in building a community and course app. I mean, the mobile app is really legendary.
Yeah, it's awesome. So we have that, and you can set up your notifications to get every time someone posts, every time a new training happens, all of that stuff. So it's super customizable. And then of course we have our guidelines. You can get to know us, but the real magic happens over here in the Pirates Cove. So we have this crew quarters. space. They're actually going to be combined in the next one. We're going to have just one space for everybody to share. And this is kind of where you can come in and jam. Like Alexis posted, she had a one pager and she wanted some feedback on it. So everybody was kind of commenting and giving her feedback. This is like the water cooler or rum. This is the bar of the pirate ship, basically. And people can put their what they want to talk about. Mr. B, we were celebrating his new children's book. So it's kind of a space to ask your questions, get feedback, and then just share cool things. Alexis is, yeah, this is Danny. He went to Kenya and spoke. So that was really cool to hear about. So this is kind of where everybody gets together. This is a lot of the community aspect of it. We also have, we're going to turn a lot of the practice arena. This was a little bit of a trial and error, and it was a lot of very specific questions to help you get very good or get clarity around one thing. So we had questions about pricing, red flags. We're going to incorporate this into the next academy, but it's going to be a little bit more of case studies and examples. So it's more easier for people to go access the resources and they don't have to scroll through specific things. But we have a ton of great information for people kind of saying like job opportunities, things like that. We also have events and workshops. There's not a ton right now because the academy is almost over. But as you can see, we have about 2 a month where we go through live workshops. Christopher also will host. This is where everybody who wants to join can come on and talk about the training for that month or any questions that they have. Typically, the workshops are a little bit more structured around the topic, and the AMAs are usually a little bit more bring whatever questions you have. But a lot of these just turn into one big.
Slightly less structured, Katrina.
Slightly less structured. It's to talk about whatever you want to talk about with the chickens in the garden. And Christopher. So yeah, we have a lot of workshops, and we also have all of the recordings. So if you miss one, or for example, we had a couple of students who were over in Asia, you can go and watch the recordings, and we'll have like we have a whole overview of here's what we talked about. Here's the watch time. There's Christopher. Here's what you need to know, like if you want to jump through. So it's really easy to go back through the recordings if you have to miss a workshop, but you should try to make it to all of them because they're amazing. And then for the training, we have 12 months of training every single week. And how we set it up is there's a short training video. So this is example for the first month, category superpower. So basically we're going to take you through one specific concept every single week. So the first one was all about outcomes, and you need to figure out what outcomes you're known for. So we give you a little bit of context about that. We have a training video so you can watch us talk about it and get a little bit more context and information, examples, stories, that kind of a thing. And then we have workbooks. So you can go in here and actually, we have very specific exercises for you to be able to go through and work through these on your own. It's like your own personal homework thought exercise. Some people really like to use these. Some people don't necessarily use them. Maybe Pablo and Danny, you can kind of speak to your thoughts on this and how you would use them, which ones you thought they were most beneficial for. But there's workbooks included, so you can actually like do hands-on training for every lesson that we're giving you. And that's about it. It's the same thing. It's very repetitive for every single month, so you know exactly what you're getting. It's set up the same way. Very easy to understand what's coming every single week. And then, yeah, the cruise quarters is where we talk about everything that's going on with the training and in the workshops. So Danny, Pablo, do either of you have thoughts about any of that?
All right, Danny, I was going to do the same thing to you. Yeah, I think I don't know why I'm yelling. I thought that, I think it's kind of like, it has different things for different styles of learning is the best way that I would put it. And I didn't necessarily do every single workshop, but the way that it's done with like, there's a video that you listen to, right? I would watch all of those. Then there would be an exercise, and some exercise I spent a lot of time doing it. Some exercise I honestly haven't looked at. But I'm also the opposite of Danny in the sense that I'm the opposite of a super consumer of courses. Like I've never done homework in my life. This is probably my first class I've ever actually done any homework in. So that was an exponential result for me. And it
I love
helped.
you, Pablo. Me too, brother.
Right back at you, but and more than anything, I think these are really neat exercises to do for yourself and or copy and do with clients as well. Like just the way that it's all structured. So much of this for me was man, this is just the perfect example of how to create a course that allows people to learn, create a community that allows people to join together, build a business, all this stuff. Like there's so much stuff to copy, not just going through the course, right? Like looking beyond just what you're doing and into seeing what they're doing, including AI and all the different things that you all have like tailored the program to as you are continuing to do. I just think I thought it was very well done. I don't know if that's a real answer or not. Anyways, or what you're asking. Danny, your turn.
Yeah, well, I definitely do all the exercises or the majority of them. And I'm a learner. I love the challenge of it. What I found most beneficial is the jamming together, right? Of course, I want to get my question answered. That always feels good. But I learned something from Katrina, Christopher, Eddie, and Pablo every time they speak, right? And it might not be in my market, my industry, or whatever, but I know I could build the bridge to apply it, right? And learn. So I think that's super helpful. Yeah. So live stuff is the jamming is absolutely the best.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Let me see. As part of the CDA, will we have access to the Category Pirates mini books and audiobooks? Yes. So as part of it, everybody who joins has a free 1-year paid subscription. So you get access to all of the Category Pirates newsletter content for a full year. We also are giving you an ebook, a virtual copy of the 22 Laws of Category Design and the AI worksheet that goes along with it. So we're actually starting to send out some of the enrollments or the invites to enroll right now. And the earlier you enroll, the more time you have to like start working through some of that stuff and learning some of the basic concepts and frameworks, because
Do they get into the academy immediately, Kat?
they don't get into the academy
But
immediately
they get
because
this,
we're letting everybody in on the same day, but they
right,
can get into the category, they can get into the
the Substack.
newsletter,
Yeah.
the Substack, and they get the ebook right away, like within the first 2 days or something like that
Can
too.
they do strategy therapy?
Strategy therapy is a separate program. So that's kind of one of those things, if maybe you're thinking it's not.
Hey, Christopher, shut up.
No, it's good. It's a good distinction, because we've talked about this a lot of, is strategy therapy, what's the difference between strategy therapy and the Category Design Academy? And we gave everybody in the first cohort, they really helped us kind of refine it and give feedback on it. So everybody in the first cohort went through it, but it is a separate thing. And Eddie, maybe you can speak to that a little bit about how
Yeah.
you would like, which one is right for you, how they
Right.
work with each other, that kind of a thing.
Actually, we've had a couple of folks in the chat and the Q&A kind of describe like, hey, I'm building a SaaS tool for my startup, or I think Neil had commented of, I'm actually, I might be on the wrong ship. I think he said, I'm looking for, he's a startup founder looking to build a new category of software. Strategy therapy is a great option for you there. Because if you're an entrepreneur building a SaaS tool, no better exercise than to build a one-page strategy and go get the brutal honesty and radical courage and clarity to translate that what you have to one pager, and ultimately and ideally a one-sentence strategy with it. And so that's probably the right place to go if you're like kind of more of that kind of classic, like I'm actually trying to design my own category and figure it out. I think that I really like Christopher's, the way you put it, of like, if it's for your company, go to strategy therapy. There's other routes for that. If it's for your career, then this is a great place for you. Now, some of you, your career is, it's a little bit blurry. So I think as long as you are, you know, willing to be good pirates and good community members, like it, we it, by Pablo and Danny, like like we should tell Mr. B we've been talking about it, but like I don't really know how to describe the joy and the experience of having Mr. B in the academy. I don't know that he would have fit any of my explanations for why he should or shouldn't be there. All I know is that he's an amazing creator and he adds so much joy. And the stuff that he is doing around creating a new category of children's books, teaching kids how to rap, and it just blows our minds with it. I don't know where that fit, but I think he was very open to learning the craft and going through the content and to build it out that way. So I don't know that there's a hard and fast rule, um, but yeah, in general, company separate, career, perfect place for you.
That moment with Mr. B was one of my favorite moments. You know, like because with what you're describing, Eddie, I think that in betweener person, you know, that is, hey, I am an executive. I have dabbled in the past of like freelance stuff. I have maybe given a shot or two at entrepreneurship. I've got multiple projects. None of them really fit. So I'm really thinking about whether I'm going to do it for this one or that one. It's like bullshit. Like once you got, I have that moment with Mr. B was incredible, right? Like the how you took a guy that was a professional rapper, that also was like tinkering with like a SaaS product that had also written a children's book, and you figured out how to just like put it all together into a category that's really working for him, and everybody's like, "Fuck yeah, that's so obvious. How did you not think of that?" Right? Like, so I would say that if you're one of these folks that has multiple things that you're doing, it's for sure for you.
Well said.
It's interesting because we had a few people in the program who were there. That is to say, if you were to take their areas of interest, their areas of expertise, the areas of problems and opportunities they like to solve and or access, the problems and value they've been known for creating, and draw it in a Venn diagram, none of them would appear to have any overlap, right? But when we were all pushing each other to do some thinking about thinking, you say, well, okay, so if there were a connection between the fact that you like to water ski and write poetry, play guitar, and build SaaS products, what would it be? Right. And invariably, if we were willing to surrender the constraints of the current premise, reject the premise, and consider wildly different futures that on the surface, right? One of our favorite expressions, every legendary business is a dumb idea until it isn't. And then in being willing to trade in dumb ideas with each other and look for things that don't appear present, to your point, with Mr. B and with several others, when we got the lock in and we saw it, it was there and nobody could ever unsee it. And to your point, part of his success has been now he can articulate that radical different in his own personal category design, and people get it too. And heretofore, nobody thought any of the shit he was doing was connected. Never mind a new way of doing something, a new category of something.
I'm excited to see how that plays out.
Me too. I hope he wins a Grammy and he buys a mansion in Brentwood.
Just walks around with burritos every morning.
Oh my God, if he's just walking around Venice Beach.
That's
with
the
his
other one.
burrito.
Characters, different, welcome. You're all welcome.
Absolutely.
Yes, this is the island of misfit toys.
One final thing I want to add, because if nobody has any other questions, is just Danny, can you speak? I know you went through the strategy therapy course, most of it, right? So I kind of want to hear your thoughts on strategy therapy versus academy, or how they were connected, how you use both of them, having gone through a decent part of the academy first and then taking strategy therapy about halfway through. So if you can speak to that a little bit, maybe that would give some folks some clarity if they're trying to decide.
First, I think I'm a terrible strategic thinker, right? Or I don't know that I've had a lot of training around strategy. So that was a huge opportunity for me, right? So, you know, Seneca says if you're in a boat basically and you got wind at your sails, but you don't know where you're headed, the wind isn't favorable to you, right? And so that I think I related to that quote in terms of I knew I could accomplish more and that kind of thing, but not necessarily having focus and being able to share it in a succinct way, even though Pablo says I can. So strategy therapy certainly helped with that. And I knew I got it as well, because when I shared it with my internal team, they all said, yes, that's it. Right. The category design, I mean, it's broader, right? There's more components. As Katrina was walking us through the academy inside, you could see all the different modules that are there. So it's establishing, your superpower, crafting your point of view, mastering the no sell sell, and so much other stuff, right? And so it's salt and pepper. It's seasoning. It makes the meal that you've cooked taste a lot better, So hopefully that metaphor worked for you. I will say this though too, even just participating in the Category Design Academy, I launched my own community, right? So just sharing another win. It was a 6-week launch, mid-July through August, and there's 120 ruckus makers, right? That's what I call my people, who want to learn how to do school different. And the do school different, there's a whole riff around that, but that's the bat signal that I put out, right? And I was too close to it to even see it, and after going through this program as well, I hate the original name of the company and the website from 10 years ago, but God bless me, I didn't know category design back then. But I'm playing a game of exponential change, not incremental, and that's why it all works, and we've all figured it out. So hopefully that answered the question for you?
It did.
Okay.
So legendary,
that.
Danny. Is it wrong for one man to love another man?
It's not wrong. 10-second story too. I don't know if you can relate to this, but I've read the books, right? I read the mini books, I've read the big books. And there was still a gap in just trying to figure it out. And that was the problem that was solved with the Category Design Academy, right? I'm a smart guy. I try and I tinker, but that can't substitute, again, with the dialogue that you have with the fellow pirates and figuring out how you'll actually implement and iterate, pivot, that kind of stuff. So if you could relate to that, join, apply right now.
Awesome. Anyone else before I close us out? No.
If you like to listen to Lochhead's podcast and you enjoy the parts where he goes, you get a lot of that in this course. Just throwing it out there.
If you love tangents.
Did I overdo it on the irritating voice of the wanker of the day?
I feel like I got what I paid for, is all I'm saying. That's what
Oh, there will be chasing zebras down rabbit holes. There will be.
There will be that. Some practical, tactical information is applications close by September 30th. If anybody here has not applied and you're interested in it, the link is in the chat. I can drop it in here again, but go apply if you think it's for you. If you really think it's for you and you're like, I want in, send us an email at hello@Category Pirates. And because we want people who want to be in there, right? We don't want people who are just like thinking about it and maybe, and I'm not sure, whatever. So if you're committed to it, if you really know that it's right for you, let us know. We're sending out.
If you're not sure, it's not right for you.
There you go.
You have to be like way sure.
We're sending out invites and enrollments. We just sent our first round this week, and we're going to be sending them over the next couple of weeks. So keep an eye on your inbox and let us know if you have any questions. I'll likely be the one answering them. So reach out to me. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Pablo and Danny, for joining. We appreciate it.
Super excited.
Bye, everyone. Hope to see you on the Academy Pirate Ship.